Literally a month after the reckless company was forced to close its doors in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, GameStop is already making plans to reopen. In the past few weeks, very, very rich people and the politicians they pay have been talking about how we must restart the economy because to them, the economy is more important than real people. Right now, we're still in a situation where if you gather large amounts of people, you can almost guarantee that a significant portion of them will walk away with the coronavirus. We've seen this, fittingly enough, with the recent anti-quarantine protests, a bunch of consumers campaigning for the freedom to consume in the middle of a worldwide fucking health crisis. And despite my distaste for the word consumer, I'm actually going to use it here in an insulting way, because forcing their hairstylist to go to work and touch people and risk their lives and the lives of their loved ones is more important to them than, well, lives. In fact, this was a point made by Texas Lieutenant Governor and prick Dan Patrick, who literally said there are more important things than living when saying that the economy needs to reopen because two politicians, two corporations, human life is genuinely inferior to profit.
We're crushing small business. We're crushing the markets. We're crushing this country. And what I said when I was with you that night, there are more important things than living. And that's saving this country for my children and my grandchildren and saving this country for all of us. And I don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. But man, we gotta take some risk and get back in the game and get this country back up and running.
This is a belief clearly shared by GameStop CEO George Sherman, whose company plans to exploit the reckless decisions by various politicians to reopen their cities and their states' economies, despite all credible medical sources advising them otherwise and downright promising that this will put an incredible additional strain on top of already overworked doctors and nurses, as well as raise the number of cases and the death toll in a country that literally already can't handle the coronavirus outbreak. Essentially, wherever lockdown restrictions are being relaxed, GameStop plans to open. For example, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has faced stern criticism for his decision to start to reopen Georgia because he is one of many people that, again, don't understand how contagion works and doesn't seem to realize, or more importantly, doesn't fucking care, that the past several weeks of quarantine and self-isolation and shutdowns will mean nothing. All of it will be undone if people go out and start spreading shit among themselves again. They will just literally cancel out, wipe out any progress that the past few weeks may have made. What Georgia is doing is dangerous. It's dangerous to medical professionals. It's dangerous to ordinary people. It's dangerous to the fucking economy long term, but then again, capitalism never really thought in the long term. So what Georgia's doing is dangerous, potentially lethal, almost guaranteed to be lethal, and GameStop can't wait to open there. GameStop can't open in Georgia quick enough. Approximately 1/3 of US stores' locations remain closed, with 2/3 of stores closed to customers but available for curbside pickup. The company has begun the process of reopening stores in Italy, Germany, Austria, and the states of South Carolina and Georgia, and is preparing for the potential to reopen in other operating countries and states in the coming weeks. All stores in Australia remain open for business, with strong results continuing, with approximately 24% comparable store sales for the 9 weeks ended April 4th, 2020. Well, isn't that great? Why don't you shove that up your ass and play the trumpet? When GameStop was finally forced to close all of its store locations, it played it off, as you would expect, like it was doing it out of concern, it was doing it to be responsible, and this pretty much demonstrates how that's fucking bollocks. Anywhere where they are not forced to keep their doors closed, they will fling them the fuck open. And at this point, anyone running a business who is not taking this seriously is either a complete fucking idiot or a killer. If you do something knowing that what you do will kill people, and the folks in charge have more or less admitted that, after all, there are more important things than living, I don't know what that makes you if it doesn't make you a killer, or like a general or something, but George Sherman isn't a fucking general no matter what his last name suggests. Speaking of Sherman, he's also taking a base salary reduction of 50%, which you'd like to believe is a show of good faith, but for a company this fucking desperate, and GameStop is desperate, it's at death's door, it might just be a literal fucking necessity, especially since publicity-wise, they couldn't get away with the layoffs right now. Though I wouldn't be surprised to see them eventually resort to that, endanger your workers and then throw them out on their ass in the middle of a crisis where jobs are scarce. I mean, it's working for WWE. The company is taking the following actions in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. A temporary base salary reduction of 50% for George Sherman, Chief Executive Officer, 30% for Jim Bell, Chief Financial Officer, and the remainder of the executive leadership team. The board of directors has temporarily reduced cash compensation to directors by 50%. Other actions include, beginning April 26th, certain other employees across the company's worldwide operating units will receive temporarily reduced pay of between 10% and 30%. Offered certain of the company's corporate support staff the option to either a temporary furlough or reduced work week / reduced pay program. Reduced inventory receipts to match demand with a focus on key hardware, software and accessories products. Lowered capital spending to focus on mandatory maintenance or near-term high-value strategic projects. Due to the impact of governmental regulations and certain landlord decisions to close properties. Oh, doesn't it suck when someone with more power than you makes a decision for you? The company did not make a portion of certain lease payments and remains in discussions with its landlords regarding ongoing rent payments, including potential abatement, deferral and/or restructuring of future rents during this period of COVID-19 related closure. All that said, the not insignificant number of landlords who have chosen to be completely heartless pricks during this pandemic can indeed fuck off. In fact, I'd like to offer a special fuck you to the landlords of the Laurel Mall in Lamont Furnace, Pennsylvania, who chose to be incredibly unreasonable during this time when their bargaining position was highly dubious. They run a mall in the year 2020 and during a pandemic, and yet wouldn't be reasonable with my home wrestling promotion of Rise Wrestling at all. Happy to turf us out, and I looked into actually just taking it over myself, but no, Laurel Mall, good luck trying to rent that place out right now, or ever. Okay, where was we? Oh yeah, we were talking about GameStop. Actually, these two things are related because I've seen this a lot. I've seen wrestling promotions, I've seen wrestlers, I've seen small businesses, I've seen store owners, I've seen strangers and friends struggle so much during this time. And then some absolute carrion feeder like Brian Kemp comes out to make things worse because a socioeconomic system literally controlled by millionaires and billionaires apparently can't afford to close up shop for a little bit. And yeah, that does piss me off. It pisses me off to see friends and family and loved ones and, you know, people I don't know because I've got some empathy, unlike these more freedom people who are all, your health's your responsibility, fuck you, you dangerous fucking killer. You dangerous killers that don't understand viral infection and are happy to make things worse with your little protests and your haircuts, greasing the wheels of capitalism with your blood because capitalism works best when it gets ordinary people to vote against their own interests, to march themselves willingly into the meat grinder. GameStop isn't an essential business. GameStop is fucking ghoulish. And the one thing it deserves is the thing it expects all of us to do for it. It deserves to die.